Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Trophy Garden, the podcast where myself, Wolf Glick, and James Beck talk about all things Pokemon and VGC related, and non-Pokemon related as well. This is our second episode, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun doing these so far. The first episode, we got a lot of receptive and good comments and just good feedback overall, so I really appreciate everyone for tuning into that. And yeah, I think we're here just to talk about all kinds of different things before Scarlet and Violet in a month. So first of all, how are you guys doing?
I'm doing good. I just had some pasta, so I'm feeling really full. Maybe a bit early for pasta, so that might regret that later. But yeah, no, overall feeling good. I feel like this is the calm before the storm, right? We have like a month at the time of recording this. We have a month until Scarlet and Violet come out, more or less, and so it's kind of just this waiting period where we know something big is coming, but there's nothing to do except finish laying our foundation and waiting for the release.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing well, and the market was super red earlier today, and then it did reversal to green, so I don't know if that's going to continue happening, but so far it's currently green, so I'm feeling pretty good about today as well. Had a nice, long 10 hours sleep, and ready to kick it off here.
10 hours is nice. That's
I love
awesome. That's awesome. I love sleeping. That's like my favorite activity.
Do you like naps, or do you just like want a long sleep?
I can't. If I nap, then I won't be able to sleep at night. I have like mild insomnia, so like if I ever nap, like I've done it before, but I have to be like, having not slept in like 24 hours, like when I'm traveling or something. But if I ever do it other than that, I'm just not sleeping during the night. So I love to nap, but I don't let myself nap because it has negative consequences.
I feel you on that, because I love napping, but it does mess with my sleep schedule when I actually have to go to sleep like at night. So I can definitely feel you on that one, especially during in between rounds of a tournament. That's
you nap between rounds of a tournament?
I have done.
That's crazy. I've never heard of that before.
I'm like, whatever the opposite of being asleep is, that's where I am at tournaments. Like, I'm so wired that like I'm so awake that I've never even considered sleeping, because it hasn't even. I'm so awake that I forget what sleep is. Like that's I can't even. Man, I envy that. Taking a little nap, like you win 2-0, like finish it in 10 minutes, and then just go take a little sleepy. That sounds awesome. You got to teach me. I need some training.
I haven't done it recently, but I do think it was pretty enjoyable. It's just like, how fast can you fall asleep and like make sure you don't doze off to where like, oh, you're gonna miss the next round.
Sleep is like crazy to me because I actually averaged only maybe like 5 or 6 hours of sleep throughout all of high school.
Oh God!
And so now like after graduating college, I was like, I need to like prioritize like sleeping 8 hours a day, and that's like my number one priority basically nowadays. But yeah, I slept so little in high school because I had to commute like an hour and a half one way, and just between like school and everything it was a lot. So yeah, if you are listening to this, I really hope you all can get your 8 hours. It's very important for your general health.
I feel you on that one, Aaron, because I had to commute an hour. Like I did an hour one way in high school, like walking uphill just to get to school.
Oh my God.
And actually, when we talk about sleep, like elementary school, I don't know why. It wasn't exactly the best idea. But in elementary and middle school, I was the most productive at 4 a.m. in the morning. So I actually woke up at 4 a.m. in the morning. I would
in
sleep
elementary school?
Yeah, like
what work did you have to do in elementary
James, there's
school?
so much about your life that I don't know about that I feel like I'm learning, and this is like crazy.
No, but it's crazy because I was like the person who just couldn't sleep. Like I had so much energy during that time, where in middle school and elementary school, middle school especially, like I would go to bed. Maybe like when you were a kid, it was like probably like 9 to 10-ish. And then I would wake up at just 4 a.m. And then, yeah, it was just like kind of weird because it was like the most productive thing you could do in the morning. I actually felt like super awake during that time. But ever since I moved to college, I still have some of those time periods where I'll still get up pretty early. But sometimes it's like you just want to lay in your bed, till like 10 a.m. or even past that. And I definitely have had those moments, especially during the weekends now.
That's me. That's my struggle every day. Especially since I'm like, self-employed now and I don't have any like official reason to get out of bed. There's definitely days where it's like, 10:30 and I'm rolling out of bed. Also, it's funny hearing you guys talk about like your hour and a half commute in high school. That sounds miserable. I had a brisk 15-minute walk and I was there. I could drive. I mean, I didn't have a car, but I could have driven in like 6 minutes if I had a car. So that's especially in high school, where I feel like I was already kind of pressed for time with like school itself and extracurriculars. Doing like 2 to 3 hours of commuting on top of that sounds like a pain to me.
I think it's a very New York City thing, honestly. Like, because like James and I are both from New York, right?
Mhm.
And so like, yeah, often like you just have to commute to another borough to get to your school, and even though miles wise it might be like 8-10 miles, like that in New York is completely different from anywhere else, because it's like, oh, that if you were to actually drive, it would take forever thanks to traffic, and so like my commute was like walking to the train station, which was like 20 minutes away, or maybe getting my parents to drop me off, taking a train for like 35 minutes, and then taking a subway for like another 15-20, and then walking as well. So really really adds up. I'm after like going through that, I'm like, I never want to have a long commute ever again, so
Yeah, mine was kind of different, where I would actually try to avoid public transportation as much as possible, because in order to get to my high school, you need to take like 2 different bus routes. And the thing is, when you're trying to go to school like really early in the morning, especially for me, because I was in my high school marching band, which started earlier than like normal classes, so I had to be like at the school at like 6:50 usually. So I would leave at like 5:40 to walk. And the reason is because even if I took the bus, I would just like, okay, one bus, that's fine. But if that bus is screwed, then my transfer is going to get screwed. And then sometimes you would just have all these buses where during the second stop, where you just have like a bunch of buses with like all these kids crammed in it. So they didn't even stop at your stop because like the bus was just too full. So there's like no point. So I just decided, hey, I'm going to walk uphill, even though I have like this. I play tenor sax in the marching band, and let me just say,
You carried an instrument for an hour?
Carrying. Let me just say, carrying a tenor sax of all things up a hill is pretty insane, and I would not recommend it to most people, especially even in the snow. Like I would actually do that during like snow time too. It was hard, but I don't know.
You
I
are
felt
built
like
different. I am learning so much. This is wild.
one of the questions that we got from the last podcast was, what do you guys do for besides Pokemon for hobbies? And so James, you just gave us a sneak peek. You talked a little bit about playing instruments, but I didn't know, like, do you still play, or was that just a high school thing?
Actually during middle school and high school. Okay, so throughout my primary school days, elementary to high school, I actually played, I want to say it was like 7 to 8 instruments. So
What?
yeah, so I kept switching because my teachers were like, you got to keep switching. So like in 4th grade, I played the flute, and then 5th grade, I was bad at the flute, by the way.
The flute is hard. Wait, the flute is one of the hardest instruments. To be clear.
It is. Dude, I just had like a big mouth, and trying to make a small hole for the air was just like impossible. So I played the clarinet in 5th grade.
I played the clarinet as well.
I played the violin.
Sick.
That was dog shit. Oh, wait. Can you censor that? Wait, editors help. Anyway, sorry. Continue, James.
That's actually sick that you played violin. I never do that, but yeah.
I wasn't very good. I could play like hot cross buttons.
In middle school, I actually one of my things that I wanted to do for YouTube was make music videos and other stuff alongside gaming. So I was learning piano, guitar, while still playing the clarinet for the regular band. And then my teacher asked me to play tenor sax. I also played a bit of ukulele. So I played quite a few instruments back in the day. And I probably don't remember as much now, and I probably couldn't really play if you asked me to pick up an instrument. But yeah, my high school days, I was in the marching band as well. I was also in my I think I was in the concert band, into symphonic band. We actually had like a pretty competitive band program. We had one of the best marching band programs, Susan Wagner High School. So yeah, our school was really known for our band and music program. So I thought I was going to go into music, and yeah, it didn't work out, but I still had a really fun time, I think, with learning instruments, and it kind of just gave me a different mindset, I think, to things overall, being into creative
Dude,
arts.
I've learned so much about
like,
James.
like,
I just like in literally 10 minutes, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is so cool. I just have to say that first of all.
I agree completely. I was just saying, I think playing instruments, like, it's really, so I was never good at any instrument. I was a singer, which is slightly, I think it's a slightly different skill set, but I know that even just like having the experience of like singing a bunch in my, youth, adolescence, and early adulthood, I feel like that it changed the way that I approached like certain things at least, and gave me a different perspective. And so I think it also just builds good skills, right? You need to practice, you need to like be more in tune with your body and stuff, and like it's like a technical skill, and it's also a creative skill as well. So yeah, I definitely recommend. If there's any, who am I recommending this to? If you were like a fourth grader or like a third grader and you're listening to this, think about picking up an instrument. I wish I learned piano. I think piano is so cool. I wish I could play.
I played for many years, but I feel like I didn't really appreciate it as much when I was a kid, because I was, like, my parents like, oh, you got to go to lessons every week, and I never wanted to practice, and then I'd show up and get roasted by my teacher, rightfully so, because I didn't know how to play anything, and I did it for many years, but now I look back on it and I'm like, yeah, I wish it's something like I continue doing. And that's actually something I was like planning on doing, like buying a keyboard and just like messing around. I think it's really cool. Like, I love music and I love listening to music, so I think it's always really cool if there's like a song or a melody that I really like, and just learning how to play it on the piano. But yeah, I did it for so many years and I never really felt like I got much out of it. But reflecting on it, like, I did learn a lot. I just wish I was like more disciplined as a kid to actually like practice and keep up with it.
It's so tough because I feel like in order to get, you have to, like, as a kid, I think in order to actually get value out of it, you need to, the motivation has to be intrinsic, but like it's difficult. And I feel like no kid wants to play the piano. You know what I mean? Like the motivation is always extrinsic. It feels like, for example, I wish I could play the piano. There is no doubt in my mind that if my parents had, I was a stubborn kid. If my parents had tried to like get me like to learn piano, there was no way I would have done it. You know what I mean? Like there's no way, even though now looking back, I wish I could play. It's like, it's a tough position to be in, I think, as a parent, because you're like, you'll probably really appreciate this, but the kid doesn't know that,
Yeah, especially I think for anyone like young, I highly recommend just trying out something in the creative arts in general. Like, I remember your post back in the day about your a cappella group, Wolf, and it reminds me of back in the days. I actually joined my Glee Club in middle school as well.
No
That's
way.
also another. Yeah, that was another reason why I was doing guitar, ukulele, piano, because I was helping out with that as well. So that was a experience that it was only for like 2 years. I didn't do the third year because I kind of got a little bit bored, and then I was actually helping my school's academic club as well. So it was just like a really cool experience, and I don't regret going back to learning Glee, because even back then, and that was because of the show, by the way.
Yeah, I had a feeling.
Story, but
it's a cultural phenomenon for sure.
Yeah, but I felt like overall it actually really did help me and made me a better public speaker. So I think there's just like skills you can incorporate in general from like all these different activities as a kid. So even though you might not like it, your parents might be forcing you, just give it a try at least, because you'll learn some things like doing all these other extra curricular activities. I think there's just some really cool lessons that you could just use and shape your personality in general.
I'd be really curious to know the demographic of the people listening to this, by the way. Like, because I could see it being like all like college and up, or I could also see like a.
If you're watching on YouTube, let us know in the comment section.
I'm really curious.
We're curious. If you're comfortable sharing, obviously.
Yeah, of course. I laughed like I had something to say next, but my brain turned off. I'm sorry. Oh, I remember. I remember. As a fun little Easter egg for listeners, James actually, I think, is like one of his family friends, and what? I did college a cappella together. If I'm, yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, James, but I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, you're. I think it was my uncle, my uncles. Yeah.
Wait, they're actually related to you?
I think so. Yeah.
I'm gonna message the name in the chat because I don't know if he wants me to talk about him like that. But yeah, let me know if that's the guy in my cappella group.
No, I do know who you're talking
about.
It's a
small world. It's a small world.
Yeah, I thought it was like a family friend. I didn't realize it was like your family. Wow, that's really funny.
I feel like...
No, yeah, that reminds me. That was way back, man.
Yeah, a couple years.
I remember him talking about it when I stayed at their house for Virginia regionals one year.
Yeah.
That's actually insane.
Mm-hmm. Definitely a small world moment. Actually, on the subject of Pokemon players, and I went to college at Virginia Tech. 1 year, I think I've told you the story, but there was a player back in the day. His name online was Nacho Cheese 999.
Oh, I know this player.
Everyone knows Nacho Cheese. He got top.
Do you know who he beat?
Do you know who he
beat in top 8?
As a senior, right?
Yeah,
was
I
me.
do know who he beat.
That was
Eggy,
that was
Eggy.
that was actually one of the craziest sets I've ever had. Because both games went to timer, and between two games, only one Pokemon was knocked out. Like the first game I think was 4-4, and the second game was 4-3.
Wait, I don't think I realized
Yeah,
that because
I
that's
was on
how
the
I
wrong
beat
end of it.
Station. The first
And
game
then
was 4-3,
and then I got
second
like I
game
think
was 4-4.
frozen by Ice Fang, I want to say, in maybe it was game 2. And yeah,
Oh my
it
God.
was so bizarre. He was a really good player though. Like he was super good in seniors.
Yeah.
I want to say he like won or got second at Canadian nationals. Like they only had nationals in Canada like once or twice in like 2012, 2013. But he was in seniors, and then yeah, got top 4 at Worlds.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so anyway, like old school VGC player, but he hadn't played in a long time, you know what I mean? And this is probably this is probably 2015, maybe 2016. And I worked as an RA in college, like a resident advisor. It was basically like camp counselor but lives in the dorms kind of vibes. Make sure everyone's safe, like make sure everyone's comfortable and fitting in and stuff. And we had to do rounds. It was like, how often do we have to do it? I think it was like once every 10 days, maybe slightly more. I don't remember how often we had to do it, but like, yeah, basically you'd be on duty. We'd have to do rounds. And basically it was like, you were just like the person on call. So if something happened, like you were the person who like helped. If someone got locked out or there was an emergency, you were the person that a resident would call. And you also had to walk through the whole building and make sure that like no one was passed out in the bathrooms, like make sure that like everybody was being safe, that nothing was, out of alignment. And I am walking, I'm on the final floor. It's probably like midnight at this point. I think it was my midnight round. And I'm on there was one all girls hall on the building, walking around like first year as an RA, and I'm just like, making sure everything's good, looking like in the lounges and stuff. Turn my head, there's a door open. I'm like, oh, like I wonder if anyone I know is in there. And I look through this open door and I look at this guy and I'm like, and he looks at me and I'm like, nacho cheese 999. And it was him. I was like, what are you doing here? And he was like, I go to school here. I'm in this other building. I'm like hanging out with a friend. So that was definitely a like, whoa, small world moment.
That is such a throwback. James, do you know Nacho
Oh
Cheese?
my-
Because when did you start playing? Like 13, 14?
I knew who he was, but I don't think I've ever met him personally. But I do know most of the history from the black and white era.
Very good era. I do miss
A
those
good
days.
era.
I hope he's doing well.
I miss nacho cheese 999.
I kind of I kind of wish I got to play a bit more because I didn't even know there were events in 2012.
Yeah.
Like I didn't go to a single event in 2012 because I didn't know about any of them because it was really hard to find information back in the day on those events.
You basically had to be on the forum. Like most of the community was on forums.
Reddit.
How do we
It's like
explain
Reddit.
forums to Zoomers? Oh god. I don't know
Reddit,
how to
but like
explain
you
this.
only have.
It's like
you
Reddit.
only
Yeah.
have,
Okay.
like,
Most
one
of the community
place.
Reddit,
was
yeah,
on.
Reddit became. I feel like. Yeah, literally.
Each
exactly.
subreddit is a different website. Yeah, but if you like weren't in the right on the right forum and the right subreddit, Google was not going to help you.
It
You
was
know
the
what I
Wild
mean?
West back then. Like finding events, like I mean, even now, to be honest, I feel like for how many years organized play has existed, it's still a mess to like find events near you. And there even like this season, I think there have been some regionals that were posted. I think they were like the earlier ones, so for like TCG and Go in the the last few months and the upcoming months. But like I think some of the dates on the website were just legitimately incorrect. So if like you didn't really know about it and you weren't on Twitter, like you might have just booked like the wrong flights, which is really frustrating to be honest. So I'm still not like super happy about how it is. In fact, like back in the day, you could argue it was easier. Like 2010 and like 2011, they had a website that was just like, it was like PokemonVGC.com or whatever. And it would show you like the map of all the regionals that were taking place and like the dates that they were taking place. And it was like actually a really nice centralized hub for events, whereas now it's just on the Pokemon.com website, and like there's obviously a lot on that website, and I feel like often important information gets buried. So I actually really miss like the OG website what they used to have for VGC, because one, it was just easier to follow, and then two, like they would post the names of all the players that got top 16 at regionals, and then like post pictures of like the top 4 players and their teams, and I always thought that was really cool, so I miss that.
Yeah, and the websites don't really exist anymore. I think I've looked for them, and like they also. Do you remember they used to have specific websites for each event? Like I remember DC Regionals.
I think it was a page on that
had, like, a
website
for it,
basically.
you know,
like,
and,
it,
like Had all the
Yeah,
info
like
and
if
then-
you they would have a map on the US.
Oh,
and
was
it's like
that
you
it?
click wherever the regional is, like there's a circle, and then it brings you to like a landing page for each individual regionals.
That makes sense. So we're probably halfway through the time. Do we want to talk about Scarlet and Violet at all? We had a couple questions about like terrestrial Pokemon and terrestrialization. Like, how are you guys feeling about it? Given what we know so far.
Personally, I'm nervous. I think people were talking a lot about like the damage, and I'm not sure like that was actually confirmed. Like some people were like, oh, it's gonna do like double damage on top of same type attack bonus. I don't know. I think for me, not much has changed since we last talked about it, which is like I'm eager for it, but I'm also honestly a little bit nervous for it. And partially goes back to the idea of how I think a lot of people play Pokemon, which is, trying to make the best move regardless of what you think your opponent's going to do, but typings can, impact that drastically. I am curious. I've seen questions about like, oh, do you think it'll be used more early game or more late game, more offensively, more defensively? But I think this mechanic is so fluid, to be honest. And with Dynamax, like we never really saw it settle, right? It's like on certain teams, it's better to use it early. On certain teams, it's better to use it late. With Terastal, I think, like hyper offense, maybe it makes sense to just like blow something up immediately, catch your opponent off guard. But for teams that last longer, like you use it defensively to survive with your key Pokemon and then go on from there. I don't expect it, and nor do I really want it to like, settle down one way or the other. I think that's what's going to make this mechanic really creative. But yeah, I'm still nervous.
I am very nervous about this mechanic, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure it was pointed in the trailer. I remember seeing the tweet. I think it was Trista who posted it about like the damage. Like she measured the frames of like the
I saw this too.
terrestrialized Aquajet. So the thing that I was nervous because according to initial damage, it's like a 3x multiplier. And let me just say, if it's a 3x multiplier, I think
it's doomed.
Defensive play kind of goes out the window. Yeah. But I think the one thing that gave me hope was the fact that it was on a level 17 Pokemon, and because of like how levels go, like I know Little Cup damage calcs are like a lot different compared to VGC calcs, especially with like boosters. So that's my one hope, that it is not a 3 times like increase. I mean, that's the only hope that I'm really having here. Otherwise, I think it's gonna be a really offensive mechanic, and really, I just can't see why they would do it 3 times for the same type of attack bonus. Especially where I feel this mechanic, the point of it is to change into a different type, not the same type realistically. So I just really want to believe that they thought this through, and it's not a 3x multiplier, because I think that's insane. I think if we exclude stab being a 2x just in general with stab factored in, that's a fine thing. I think it's still insane, but it's like manageable in a way, where if it's a 3x multiplier, it goes out the window. And I think there's a lot of types that also benefit from that as well, especially like more than other types, especially if that's the case. Like ghost types having a 3x and Amina fake out is, oh boy, I don't know. I'm hopeful, I'm clinging to that, but otherwise, yeah, it's something I am very concerned about.
I think if it's 3x, like Torkoal's probably like one of the best Pokemon in the first format, because after your eruption, Terrafire choice specs, I don't think anything's living that.
There are some fun calcs that were done, and even stuff like Sylveon and a Rock Grenade with ability stuff.
Yeah, Raccoonie too, yeah. Something that I'm a little worried about that isn't specifically like the actual like battles themselves, but how you get there is resetting for legendary Pokemon. Getting a legendary Pokemon with 0 IVs is already a pain, like a huge pain. I remember for Salt Lake City Regionals, I had to reset for Palkia. I think I got one that was like 0 speed, 17 attack IV, and I was like, that's good enough. You know what I mean? Like that's totally fine, because nowadays basically legendary Pokemon are IV locked to have 3 perfect IVs, which is great in a lot of cases, but is actually pretty bad if you want a Pokemon with bad stats, especially if you want 2 bad stats. And I'm thinking like, if you want a Palkia with 0 attack, 0 speed, and the right Terra type, like I really hope there's some way of changing it in game, like saying, okay, I want my Palkia to be Steel or whatever. Because if you can't do that, then yeah, like I don't like resetting just sounds like a horrible thing. Or alternatively, maybe they'll finally add a way for us to lower stats, but I think that's less likely in all honesty.
Yeah, resetting for all those would be pretty insane. I remember for Worlds, I was just resetting for a Kyogre with 0 attack IVs in the not for Worlds. I was resetting for New Jersey Regionals. I used that for Worlds though, and I was just trying to reset for a 0 attack IV. And that max raid den is brutal. Kyogre is one of the most brutal ones because it can just like instantly, like you could get up to the Kyogre and in 30 minutes and then just like lose and not have a chance to catch it. So I really hope that it's some easy way to catch legendaries, or yeah, again to modify, because I got mine in BDSP. I got it on my first try.
Yeah.
And even if I didn't, it would have been so much insanely easier because all I had to do was talk to the Kyogre, throw a Master Ball, check the IV, and it was really simple.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah, it's a lot better than back in the day. But I guess what was it? RNG. I don't remember because I was really bad at it. But yeah, like getting certain IVs, and specifically back in the day, hidden power. It just sounds like we're gonna go for that again, where it's like, oh, we're gonna have the Terra type instead, replacing the hidden power type. And
yeah,
that just sounds. I think that's a step backwards if it's no way to actually like influence it.
I'm
manually.
just like at this point eager to get started. You know, even if it's bad, even if it's good, like I just want time with the games, because it's like you know. In my head, I was like, I get theory all I want and give my speculation, but at the end of the day, it's like I'm just not gonna know until I actually like have it in hand and can use the mechanic and get battles in. So, I mean, we'll see how it is. I think regardless, all of us have stuck through many generations, regardless of whether the mechanic was good and bad, right? And like, part of being a good player is being able to adjust to whatever the new meta or the new mechanic will be. So we'll see. Overall, like, I'm cautious about it, but we're a month away at this point, and so I think that'll be cool. But I'm just curious, like, have you guys been following all the trailers actively? I actually haven't like done a great job of keeping up with everything, so I'm curious what you think of what we've seen so far.
I've been I've been watching the trailers, but mostly for my like the job part of the Pokemon stuff that I do, not like my own personal stuff, I don't think I watched the Wiglet trailer or whatever the heck that was. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it looks good. I'm excited. I think that like they showed off a couple things that are really interesting. In the most recent trailer, they showed like you can craft TMs, which you do have to spend in-game currency for, but still I think is like a good, like, you don't have to like hunt them out anymore, you know what I mean? Which should be helpful. And there was another change they made. Oh yeah, they showed that you can battle without actually having to enter the menu. Like, you can just send your Pokemon out and we'll just beat up wild Pokemon, like basically auto battle. And I thought both of those changes were cool. And there was one more thing where they showed where I was like, oh, that seems like geared towards competitive players. So yeah, I don't know. I think overall I'm really excited. And I think the game is looking really good. I think the open world aspect is really cool. I think like the game itself is looking like it could be a really good game, personally.
So I actually have not watched most of the Scarlet and Violet trailers, and I think it's mainly just because we're in a time where leak culture is everywhere, and pretty much you're just gonna know a lot about a game before it even comes out. So I actually have been one of those people who have been very lucky in general, unless like I don't really care about the leak, like new Pokemon, for instance, that were revealed. I've seen it, but like otherwise, I think I've been doing a good job avoiding most of the leaks so far.
My bad.
And
I guess that wasn't leaks though. Sorry, this is like trailers.
yeah. And I also don't really mind too much about leaks for Pokemon games. Other games maybe, but I haven't really played any of those recently. But in general, I just feel like just as you said, Aaron, we're not going to know officially until the games come out. We don't know if these leaks are reliable. Official trailer stuff is kind of cool, but like at the end of the day, I'm just looking forward to probably just playing through the game normally, like how we would back in the day before like the internet was like really big, which makes us sound like boomers. But yeah, there were times back in the day where we didn't have like everyone talking about a new game online, and it would just spoil someone. So I'm pretty excited for that. But I did want to ask you all about, we talked about the mechanics a little bit, and we talked about I can't even pronounce Terastalize or I don't know how you pronounce it, but I was wondering what you thought about like the main mechanics. Like for instance, in Gen 8, we had the speed mechanic change, which was the first time that's ever happened in Pokemon. And I think we're probably going to have that in Gen 9, of course. But I was wondering like what you thought about that speed change, and also like there was a potential, I think Wolf, you covered this, how there was the Legend of Arceus status changes where we could potentially get rid of freeze and sleep for drowsy. Although I'm still confused on that because the rest apparently under the
I think I was wrong. I think I jumped the
sleep.
gun on that for the record. I don't think they're coming. Yeah, I like because a lot of people commented and I had access to more information, and I no longer think that they are coming to Scarlet and Violet. My bad.
But I'm just curious, if they did come theoretically, how would you welcome that change? Like speed in general, I'm also curious on all your thoughts about like the new speed mechanic in general from Gen 8, and then like how new mechanics could be implemented in this generation.
I think the new speed mechanic is really, really good. I think it's way more intuitive is the thing. And it also allows for much more interesting play where like, I mean, it was kind of dumb where like, okay, like I have Ludicolo on the field and I switched in my Politoed. It's now currently raining, but Ludicolo is still slower than like Mega Salamence. You know what I mean? Like if the rain is up, why am I not? You know, the fact that it said it, or like, and also like, you know, having the sun be up, but rain was active at the beginning of the turn, and now Ludicolo is like still fast. Like, I think that's really unintuitive, and I think that the new change will stay. I also think it's just like it makes certain things way stronger. Tailwind obviously got a lot stronger. Icy Wind, all moves that affect speed minus Trick Room got like basically buffed in some way. But I like it. I think it allows for more interactive gameplay, which I'm overall a fan of, and yeah, I think it's overall more easier to grasp, which I really value, things that make Pokemon more accessible to the average person, right? So I think that it makes sense in that regard. I don't like I have a hot take. I don't know if I like Drowsy more than I like Sleep. I mean, I hate playing against Sleep. I get super tilted when I play against Venusaur players or like Among Us, and it's just like, you know, Sleep spam is super dumb, but I think like Sleep is dumb but fair, you know, like whether it's inaccurate because of Venusaur or, you know, like you can all like, I feel like Sleep rewards you for building teams that are like resistant to it. And with Safety Goggles, Lumberry, Misty Terrain, and Electric Terrain, that feels doable. So I feel like it's kind of like a gut check. You know what I mean? Like, did you build your team to resist variance? Yes or no? So I don't mind Sleep, and Drowsy. Like, I think Sleep also has its place in the metagame as well. Like, I think it actually does some things that are beneficial and rewards like some interesting playstyles. Whereas Drowsy, I don't know. It just I really don't know how I feel about it. It seems more weird. I would welcome Freeze just being removed or replaced though, because Freeze is the absolute worst. No question.
It's just so uncompetitive, and like, you know, some of the moves that you use like can freeze, like Ice Beam, like they're just inherently good anyway. Like I don't think anyone's not using Ice Beam if you remove the chance of freezing, right? And so it's just one of those like conditions where if it randomly comes out during a battle, I'm like, well, I'm gonna try here, but I literally like feel like the game is over unless I get lucky and thaw out immediately. So I think my response here, this is actually interesting, right? Because like Series 13 is happening right now. It's such a casual like format, as in like, you know, no, I wouldn't say no one's taking it seriously, but you know, we're like no one's there are live tournaments for it outside of like one tournament in Taiwan, I believe. So as a result, it's just a lot of people kind of laddering, and there I feel like you see the effects of dynamic speed so much, because Whimsicott's just like one of the best Pokemon in the format, right? It's like you look at Team Preview and it's like 4 or 5 of these ultra strong legendary restricted Pokemon, and then just the Whimsicott. Yeah. But part of it is that like, yeah, like Tailwind is so strong, and that's a format where I think dynamic speed is interesting in the sense that I feel like the options actually kind of get limited because Whimsicott is just so good, right? Like it gets Tailwind, it gets Encore, it gets Trick Room as well. So like, yeah, I mean, I've still been playing Series 13. I think that it got fairly centralized very quickly on the top ladder. Like if you look at the top 30 teams from the last season, it was almost all like Whimsicott oriented teams with a combination of like Yveltal, Calyrex Shadow Rider, Kyogre, Groudon, Zacian, the occasional Zekrom popped up. So yeah, I think that like them allowing mythical Pokemon was pretty interesting. I'm kind of going on a tangent here now, but I feel like in execution it just didn't end up being as fun. And I was like thinking, oh, how can you make a mythical formats more interesting? And I was like, what if you allowed like one mythical and one like non-mythical per team? Let's say restricted. Like how would that play out? I don't know if it just becomes super centralized and everyone picks like Magearna and Zacian. I mean, that's actually kind of counterintuitive because it's two, you know, same typing, but you get my point, right? But I was like, yeah, it's cool that they allowed mythical Pokemon, but in the end, they're actually just really bad, honestly, other than maybe like Magearna and some of the others that have like interesting use, like Zarude, Zeraora, for example. But yeah, just some thoughts on Series 13 and then how like dynamic speed affected it, and Whimsicott in particular.
I will.
Hey, at least
Go ahead.
Yep.
at least we're not playing a regional for it, which did actually happen in Taiwan, and there was actually like one person who only had
It was
two
Lunala.
restricted
Yeah,
Pokemon,
it was like
which I think was like
Colbur, Berry,
Cosmo
Lunala,
Dustman and
Will-O-Wisp,
something other, or maybe it
Wide
was
Guard, Life. I actually
Lunala.
just used that
It
on
was
YouTube.
Lunala,
And I was
yeah.
like, this is crazy.
It was like
this team in
Primarina
itself already would have been crazy in Series 12, but this player managed to get top 8 at regionals with a 2 restricted team in Series 13 when they have Primarina and Kartana and Choice Scarf Savali. Yeah.
Yeah, and they went like 5-1 too. That was absolutely insane.
I don't get it. I don't get it at all. I think that if you're gonna include these Pokemon that are like, hey, you are never, ever, ever allowed to use these, but just as a treat, you can have them, then don't give them to us with Kyogre and Zacian and stuff. You know what I mean? And Calyrex Shadow. Like, I wish they'd given us a format where it's like restricted, but the restrictions are on the mythical Pokemon. You know what I mean? Not, okay, your team could literally be Groudon, Kyogre, Zacian, Calyrex Shadow, Yveltal, and then like one more. You know what I mean? Because they like these mythical Pokemon just
I would say
as a whole.
It's, I mean, like
what's
both
the
in terms of
strongest mythical
ability
Pokemon?
and
It's got to be
like,
Magearna,
defensive
right?
capabilities.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's just so
Magearna.
consistent.
Like Magearna's not. Yeah. Yeah, and like I feel like Magearna compare, like if you were to rank all legendary and mythical Pokemon together, like Magearna can't be higher than top 5, right? Like there's no way it's better than Groudon, Kyogre, Zacian. Honestly, Calyrex Shadow, Yveltal, right? Like
It's probably like a top 20 mon.
it's probably like a top 20, top 15 mon. So like, yeah, you can use it because it's fun. Maybe I'm just salty because I couldn't get into number 1 on the ladder, but like I don't know. I thought it was
I've been
kind of like
frustrated
underwhelming.
like, I
in
think
all
like
honesty.
you know,
Like it
just
feels like a
making
win
content in the
more
format.
mon,
It's
you
like,
know what I
oh,
mean?
it's really fun when you can make like, you know,
so-
less common Pokemon shine. And in Series 12, actually, I think like, you know, it was a great format for that because yes, you get 2 restricteds, but it's like, you know, because of Dynamax and just all the strategies around it, like you can really make so many Pokemon work. And so like I'm fairly sure I tried out like almost every restricted Pokemon at some point and had like, you know, could make fun content around it. Whereas in Series 13, it's like, oh, I'm trying to make like Mew or Celebi work, and then I go into Team Preview and it's like Yveltal, Calyrex, Kyogre, Zacian, and Groudon. I'm like, what do I do? Like, yeah, like, and of course you can still make it work, right? But it's just substantially more challenging. So yeah, I mean, this was a fun experiment from them. I would be okay never playing a all restricted format ever again. I think still there's a lot of interesting things. Like it's just a shame, right? Because it's like what you guys were saying with like, yeah, mythical Pokemon, like yeah, if you put the restrictions on them, it becomes a lot more interesting. But yeah, like generally their base stats are just like not great. Their typings are average. A lot of the abilities are so mid compared to like, you know, these ultra powerful restricteds. And so I do want them to explore more fun format. Like I think
So
like,
mid, bestie.
VGC in general, like you could explore a lot of more fun formats, like Little Cup VGC, or yeah, just like these arbitrary rule sets. I know like Spike Booth Cup is something people have been playing, but I'd love to see just like more wacky things, right? And like, you know, sometimes they do those for like the online competitions, but we don't see it like in game in terms of like battle stadium or the rules or whatever. I don't think they'll ever do it for an official format, but I'd love to just see them lean into it more because I think that it's so much more like viewer friendly. Like I remember for one of the Players Cups, I'd like more people were receptive to the Little Cup exhibition battles, and then like the mythical exhibition battles than the actual battles in the Players Cup. Like and the casters did these exhibition battles, right? And so I was like, man, it would just be fun if we like explored more fun stuff like that because I feel like at the end of the day, like so many people complain about like, oh, ultra powerful legendaries, and then the fun format we get to close off Sword and Shield is let's allow all of them rather than like something else, right? And so yeah, I just think like to make Pokemon more viewer friendly, like there's just so many complaints inherently about legendaries and restricted Pokemon, and I love to see them like try out more experimental formats, even if it's just for like a casual, you know, 1 month online rule set.
I agree completely. Like, I mean, and obviously, like, I won Worlds in a restricted format, but like, yeah, I would be totally okay never playing a restricted format again because it's just like you said, it's alienating for the viewer, right? And it's like we know that all Pokemon power levels are relative. You know what I mean? So like, there was a point where Arcanine was the best Pokemon in the game, right? And like 20 or like close to it at least, in 2017, even though now it can't really hold a candle. And like you're always gonna have like a meta. You're always gonna have some Pokemon that are like stronger than others. But yeah, I would be like since that's gonna be the case anyway, I would be fine just letting, like making it less alienating for casual viewers, because I'm sure they'd rather see like, I don't know, Mienfoo or like whatever else is good in Little Cup doing well than compared to like Kyogre, right? Even though we know it's kind of like Pokemon on top of the meta is kind of the same. It's like, yeah, I don't know, like for the casual viewer, it looks totally different, even though it's functioning in the same way. So I don't think they'll do it, because I think that like obviously the legendary Pokemon are on the boxes, and like they want to use it to promote like that as well. And like I don't know, maybe it's perceived differently in Japan, which is ultimately where the rules come from. But yeah, I would be okay just to make it more viewer friendly and more approachable to never use restricted Pokemon again.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, like, I think legendaries, of course, get the most online chatter, but I think at the end of the day, we're still going to have, like, no matter who, it's just going to complain more and more and more, no matter what. Like,
yeah,
people obviously complain about Incineroar, especially. I think that's a big one for everyone. And it's just like, no matter what, there's going to be something that's going to be like really good, and a lot of players are just going to use a little bit more than the average Pokemon. And it's just because like it's a really solid option. And I think at the end of the day, like even Series 6, which was, I think, a lot of people's most disliked format in the entire Sword and Shield genre, I feel like, like no matter what, I feel at the end of the day, it's just going to be pretty tough regardless. But yeah, and I'm not going to say that to defend legendary Pokemon. Like, sure, I have my best results in the legendary formats, but at the end of the day, like, they're actually some of my least favorite formats. So like, I just hope we can get a good Pokedex this year and have some really cool options where like nothing feels absolutely necessary on a team, where we can have like a lot of solid options, and it doesn't feel like something's like, oh, the damage output of this is insane, like it's got to be used, or it has to be hard countered.
I just hope Incineroar's not in the decks or in the game, period.
And then people are going to complain about Arcanine.
That's fine. They can complain about Arcanine or Hitmontop or whatever. As long as Incineroar's not there, I'm down.
But yeah, we've covered a lot. So anyone else want to say anything?
I just have to say, James, I've learned so much about you.
Words.
Like,
Goodbye.
it's actually that the first 5-10 minutes, I was literally like, my hand was like on my head. I was like, what in the heck? Like, this is so cool. But honestly, I really like that. I feel like part of doing this is fun is because, like, I think most people who watch us, like, probably don't know very much about us outside of, what we have accomplished within Pokemon or within VGC. And so even for me, James, like, I've known you for a long time. I didn't know any of that about you. And I think one of the things that I deeply appreciate about Pokemon is getting to connect with people on a personal level outside of the game. And it's always, I actually, like, one of the things I appreciate most about playing VGC was like meeting so many people from around the world that could like shape my perspectives, because like they'd have completely different stories about how they grew up and, their upbringing and their culture and the education they had. So kind of, just monologuing now, but you get the point. And I think that's actually one of the things that's like had such a huge impact on my life. So I love that. Dude, I was awful. I was so bad. I was in the jazz band in middle school for a very brief
I never knew that.
And then I realized that jazz was not my calling, and so I quickly retired from the band. But no, it was cool. I did cello, clarinet, and piano, and cello, clarinet, like very brief stints. Piano I actually stuck through for a long time, but I'll end with this story. Like, for piano,
God.
like I grew up in
too?
a predominantly like immigrant community, and like all of our parents were like obsessed with the idea of competition. And so with piano, like there's like different like competitions that you can take, and then there's like different like ranking levels as well. So it's like if you pass, then you're like certified rank like 6 or whatever, and I think there were like 8 or 9 levels total. And so like I think all the parents are always like, oh, we really want our kid to be like rank A, we want them to get there before anyone else. And actually a lot of the most like talented kids that I knew that played the piano, like I think got burnt out really quickly because kind of this like grinding culture. So that's actually pretty interesting, because like you don't expect like 5 to 10-year-olds to get burnt out, but this was actually a thing. And so yeah, at some point I was like, Mom, Dad, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to play Pokemon. And they're like, okay, cool. And so that was it.
That's intense. When I was like a 5 or 10-year-old, I was like eating bugs or whatever. But if there were competitions, I probably could have been pretty good at it, I think.
Yeah, I've had pressure on me before, but yeah, like I think it's pretty easy, especially with parents or other adults, especially I think like if you played chess back in the day, competitively young, like I've heard some of these stories, I've witnessed them, and it's pretty insane like how much pressure like one kid could hold at the age of like 8, for instance, even younger.
Yeah.
I think that's
I
all
don't
we
even know
got.
what
But
to
if
say.
you
How can we end it
have,
off after
you know,
that?
grown
Like,
up playing
what's an
instruments,
appropriate
let us
ending?
know if you're watching this on YouTube down in the comments section below. And if you're not watching on YouTube, well, just think about it and reflect on your time playing instruments and
Go to YouTube and leave a comment. It's not
and
that hard.
you know, we want this to really be as chill as
on your
possible.
choices,
So
reflect
if you
on
have
what led you
any,
here.
you know, potential things you want to see us discuss in future episodes, especially as we get closer to Scarlet and Violet, obviously let us know, either on YouTube or if you want to DM us on Twitter. That's always a possibility as well. But yeah, always a blast doing this with you guys, and thank you so much for watching.